Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma, no other than Mr. Ray Hartjen.
Hello, Daniel. How are you today?
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Ray, and I'm fabulous like you. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Daniel, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. A wonderful opportunity. So thank you. Audience, my name is Ray Hartjen. I am a writer and a musician who lives in Southern California, Mission Viejo in Orange County, just south of Los Angeles.
Mr. Ray Hartjen, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. So what inspired you to write Me, Myself?
It is a very personal book. I have 4 books out. This is my second book. This book is a personal story in that it's a memoir of me as a cancer patient. So Daniel, in the March of 2019, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And if you or anyone in the audience isn't familiar with that disease, it's a blood cancer. It's an incurable blood cancer, but it's a treatable blood cancer. And when I was first diagnosed with it, I had not, Daniel, so thankfully and fortunately, up until that point in time, I had not, really, experienced much in the cancer world, and I certainly hadn't experienced any, serious health issue of my own. So I was kind of in this protective little bubble, and I learned so much about being a patient of any serious disease or condition. And particularly about being a cancer patient from the people who had come before me. I depended a great deal upon members of my support group that I became part of, my care providers, and the people who came out of the, out from my network saying, oh, yeah, I've had a cancer, or somebody I know has had multiple myeloma or what have you. And so, so many people I had benefited from so many people, becoming part of my tribe. I wanted to give back to the community, right? I felt as though, going through my journey and my with multiple myeloma, my fight against cancer, that I had learned a lot, I had changed a lot, and I wanted to share my story, but I wanted to do it for the community, right? So I wanted this to be a book about my fight, but it was for those with multiple myeloma, for those caregivers of those patients with multiple myeloma, and for allies. And to really make it for the community, I donate my net writers' proceeds to the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation to truly make this book, from the community to the community for the community. And so, that's why I wrote it. I wanted to give back as a way of, acknowledging the fact that so many people had given to me to pull me forward in my fight. And if I could possibly be a resource for others, then by golly, Daniel, I wanted to do that too.
Mr. Ray, we salute you for doing that, and I hope you will continue doing it because you're one of a kind. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about multiple myeloma that you hope to correct with this book?
That's a good question. I think, one misconception, it's for everybody. It's not about multiple myeloma. It's maybe about a lot of serious diseases. Daniel, I was diagnosed, I think I was 19 days shy of my 55th birthday. And I felt pretty good. In hindsight, I could tell that I was fatigued. But for crying out loud, at the time I was 54 years old, married with a full-time job and 2 kids in expensive private universities. Give me a break. I deserve to be a little bit fatigued, right?
Yes.
But I as part of a blood work I was having done with a doctor's visit, I was I was a little low on hemoglobin. I was anemic. And it wasn't very much anemic. So we kept, digging a little bit deeper to try to find the root cause of my anemia. turned out once finally my final test was a bone marrow biopsy, 90% of my bone marrow was cancerous. Yet at the same time, remember, Danielle, I was feeling great. I was a very active road cyclist, and all of my performance metrics at 54 years of old were as good as they had been for the 5 years previous. So, I was strong on the bicycle. I was feeling good. Yeah, I was a little bit fatigued, but it didn't feel like anything was wrong. And I wanted to remind you and the audience, keep in mind, 90% of my bone marrow was cancerous, right? So, one misconception I want to just provide for folks is that no matter how well you feel, you owe it to yourself to go to your doctor at least once a year. And part of that, get a full blood workup. Because you never know what's underneath the hood until you open up the hood and take a look, right? So invest in yourself. If it's inconvenient, I know that, to go to the doctor, you might have to miss work or something like that. But it doesn't take long. It's not an entire day procedure. Yeah, you need to get your blood drawn, and a lot of people don't like doing that. But it's best to catch things when it's early, when it's treatable, when there's a lot of treatment options, as opposed to waiting for the opposite when things are maybe even too late to treat. So misconception, no matter how well you feel, go to the doctor, you owe it to yourself. There's no better investment you can make than in yourself.
Yes, definitely. Highly recommended, people, that every year you have a general checkup, just like your car.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to take care of the only thing that you can, the most important thing that he can take care of, so
Yes.
get your tune up, go to your doctor, get your tune up, and hopefully you don't be afraid of what they might find. You're going to be fine, but it's better to know than not know. So get it done.
Yes, cure is better than prevention. So, how do you balance sharing your personal story with providing helpful information for others?
Yeah, once I made the decision to write this book, a memoir, I had to accept the fact that I was just going to be completely honest, right? You can't hold back things, you can't change things. Again, this is a gift of sorts to the community, right? It's for patients, it's for caregivers, it's for allies. So I needed to tell the truth, and that's one thing. There's some things maybe you don't want to, maybe you ordinarily wouldn't want to talk about. Part of, I think, that helped me, Daniel, is that I'm a musician, and I perform a lot, and so I'm used to being out there and to expose myself to maybe failing, maybe not meeting folks' expectations. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with get that feedback. Yeah, that's just not for me. And
Yes.
while I would hate for someone to read the book and say, yeah, that's not for me, I would hurt my feelings a little bit. I still just needed to approach this thing with a clean piece of paper, to the unvarnished truth, no matter how it might be somewhat embarrassing or something like that. I mean, when you talk about, well, first of all, my journey through multiple myeloma began with hemorrhoids to begin with. Like I said, I was a cyclist. I was having hemorrhoids. I remember my gastrointestinologist who gave me my colonoscopy had said that, oh yeah, you have hemorrhoids, kind of said it in passing. And so, they were beginning to get more and more problematic as I was riding my bicycle. So I went back and, tried to get some clarity. And that's what started, this journey down to multiple myeloma. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing talking about hemorrhoids, but, it's what you got to talk about, because I can't talk about my diagnosis without what's led up to me, trying to get to my diagnosis. And then when you go through cancer treatments, there's chemotherapy is sometimes a difficult thing with the side effects, and there's a lot of things unpleasant things to talk about there as well. Particularly with what goes on with your gastrointestinal tract, but you got to talk about it. You have to be able to share with the audience and let them know what they can expect and what their loved ones can expect, and maybe tips for dealing with it.
Definitely. So, Mr. Ray, what is the most difficult chapter to write and why?
I think the most difficult was just remembering how I was going to tell others. So Daniel, when patients get diagnosed with any type of serious health concern, they have to make a very personal decision. Do I tell anybody? and I wanted to tell people about it because it was part of me. And part of that was, I read a story years and years ago as a younger man about a cancer patient who did not tell anybody about his diagnosis, including his wife and his children. He did not want to burden them with that. And after some time, of struggling with his disease, he ended up, dying. And it came as a surprise to his family. And, his family was in a way kind of hurt because, they wanted
To help.
to be burdened with it. They wanted to help. They wanted to go through this, so, that made a mark with me. And so, my wife was with me through all of my appointments. So she already knew. That was easy. But, the difficult part of writing the book was remembering back of, sharing with my family first. And as I said, my children were away at college. And I thought, well, I'll start with the East Coast first, or Eastern time zone. My daughter is at Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee. So I gave her a call. And, while we communicate a lot through, text messages and a lot, we didn't really call each other. And, she knew something was wrong but because her father was calling, and I think she was answering. She was almost like crying. I wish I had practiced what I was going to say. It was a very difficult conversation to say. They got easier as I moved along to my parents who lived in the central time zone, my son who was just down the road from us in the Bay Area in California. So that got easier. But I think, remembering back to those difficult times of trying to tell people. And one of the things I do want to, share with audience members out there, there's times when it's not you, the patient, but you find out somebody else is struggling with something and you don't know what to say. You want to reach out to them and say something, but you don't know what to say. So you don't. And that I've done that many times in my past. I don't, someone's getting a divorce. I don't know what to say, so I'm not going to say anything, or whatever. Who knows what the situation might be. But in one of the things I've heard my patient support groups is, I've heard people talk about things like you find out who your friends are really fast. And I hope I never say that, man, because I love my friends. My friends have been so supportive and all that. But, some people feel that way. Some people feel as though their friends kind of have pulled back because they have been diagnosed with a cancer. And I like to tell my fellow patients, like, man, give your friends a little bit of slack. They might be like a lot of people, and like I have been in the past, they just don't know what to say. So they're like, I don't know what to say to Ray. So, I'm not going to say anything today, maybe tomorrow or maybe the next day or something like that. It's, if you ever find yourself, people out there, with not knowing what to say to somebody, do everyone a favor, including yourself, and just start there. Just say, hey, Daniel, man, I don't know what to say, but I love you. I care for you. I want to be here for you. So if you can just help me get through this difficult part of this conversation, maybe we can get into more productive things. Your friends are your friends for a reason. There are people that you have these relationships with. Maybe they just don't know how to react. Help them out a little bit. You don't know everything that's going on in their lives to begin with. Communication is a two-way street. So most difficult thing, Daniel, about maybe sharing in the book was remembering those initial conversations and sharing my diagnosis. But that brings me to the second topic. And that is, if you're out there, folks, and somebody facing a serious illness, serious health concern, reach out to them, because it is a daunting task just to keep up with all the emails and mail that you get from pharmaceutical companies, care providers, insurance companies, and so on. They would appreciate hearing from you. If you don't know what to say, just start there. Hey, dude, I don't know what to say, but I love you. I care for you. So let's work through it.
Give inspirational thought, people. So, what are the most surprising things you've learned about living with this condition?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it, because it's the thing I like to talk about most, right? I've learned I approach my initial diagnosis like I approach everything in my life, Daniel, whether it's an athlete, as a student, as a professional, as a musician, whatever, it was, I'd always worked towards something. There was either an examination, a concert, a race, a game, a deliverable at work or something. It's always leading up to like a milestone event or a capstone event. And so that's what I was going to do for multiple myeloma. I knew I was probably going to get a stem cell transplant. I was going to be in the best shape possible for that stem cell transplant. Man, I'm working out. I'm watching what I eat. I'm taking my meds. I'm going to my doctor's appointments, blah, 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 blah. And I'm getting ready for game day. I'm getting ready for fight night. 2 weeks into it, Daniel, it's a Friday night. I'm sitting at a PF Chang's with my family, and I am so tired I can't even read the menu. I'm just exhausted, and it's not. It's some of it's maybe the physical exhaustion, but it was everything. It was, I realized that my whole being is not just my physical being, but it's the mental component, the emotional component, the spiritual component. And, being a musician, I'm familiar with, a mixing board where you can have different levels for, different channels, different instruments, for example. And, with that physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual components of my being, I quickly recognized that sometimes, one of them can be so strong, they can lift the weaker ones up, but the inverse is possible too. Maybe one is so weak and not, attended to that it can drag some of the stronger ones down with it. So I realized 2 weeks in that I needed to change my approach, Daniel, because multiple myeloma, again, is incurable. It's a chronic disease. So there is no game day. There is no fight night. Every single day is game day, and every single night is fight night. So I needed something to be sustainable. So that was one thing that I learned. And then I thought, well, what else can I learn from this? How I needed to approach this maybe differently than I approach other things. What am I learning as I experience this? And I hearkened it back to an exercise that I used to facilitate in corporate America. It was part of a time management course from Franklin Covey. And it's a timeline exercise. So audience members, you can do this right alongside Daniel and myself right now. Whether you have a pen and paper or you're just doing it in your mind, it doesn't matter. But what you do is you just draw a horizontal line from left to right. And at the far left-hand side, make a little tick mark. And far right-hand side, make a little tick mark. And at far left-hand side, you put the initial B, and that's going to represent your birth. And then, of course, you're one step ahead of me already. Far right-hand side, you're going to put a D, and that's going to represent your death. So then you just take a moment, introspectively, where do you feel? Where do you think you are on your timeline? Now, I know we all intellectually know that tomorrow's not promised, etc. But, just for this exercise, where do you think? Where do you believe you are? So for Daniel, for years, when I've facilitated this, I would just kind of throw my mark somewhere place in the middle. Because one of two things is going to happen. A, I was going to live to be 100 years old, and possibly I was just going to live forever. That's just what I had in my head, right? And, once I began to revisit that after my diagnosis, I realized, my line, where I am now, is probably much further to the right than it was before my diagnosis. Maybe it's 3/4, maybe it's, 4/5 or even more, right? So, I looked at that and that gave me another realization. I was able to maybe articulate it in my head for the first time ever. Is that, Daniel, I took time for granted my whole life. And I don't think I'm unique that way. I think a lot of people take time for granted. I think it's part of the human condition. But how I did it is I took all tomorrows for granted. And I took next week and next month and next year. And depending on the topic, I would take decades for granted. I was going to be there forever. And so I put off doing the things that I wanted to do most. And, when I thought about, continued learning from that, I was like, well, how does taking time for granted manifest itself in my life? Besides, maybe procrastinating and not doing the things that I want to do. And I realized that what it does is it affects my relationships. Because, by taking time for granted, I also end up taking the people that I love the most for granted. So, if tomorrow was always going to be here, well, I'm thinking about Daniel now. I love Daniel. I care for Daniel. I want to talk to Daniel, but I'll just give him a call tomorrow or maybe next week or maybe next month or whatever. And I just kept putting those things off. So being a musician and always looking for something cool to put on the back of a T-shirt to sell at a gig so I can make more money. I came up with, I didn't come up with this saying, but I adopted this saying as a bit of a motto. If not now, when? Looking at my timeline, realizing where I am, where I think I might be on it. It's like, there's things I want to do. If I don't do it now, when are they going to get done? So that concentrates me on doing the things that matter most. And then I want to do that with the people that matter the most to me as well. My friends, my family, my community. So I think, being diagnosed with multiple myeloma, it's helped me. It become a bit of a rewarding experience by approaching it with a kind of a beginner's attitude and seeing, with a growth mindset, seeing what I could learn from this, learn about myself, to be able to have a more productive, more satisfying life filled with inner peace. And isn't that what we all want?
Yes. Very well said, Mr. Ray. Very inspiring. So speaking of music, will you be my guest on Music 101? In it's my third season already. Music 101 talks about, of course, legendary icon and the music itself that you are producing.
I would love to be on Music 101 anytime.
That'd be awesome. So, what would be your advice for those people out there suffering from any kind of cancer to survive, to fight, to inspire?
It's everything you do is personal. It's a personal decision, and take the pressure off yourself. It's the right decision. It's the right decision for you, right? So when there's lots of things you can do with taking treatments and things like that. For me, I want to. I kind of have an aggressive type of personality, and for me, I kind of look at I have a fight with cancer. Other patients I know have a journey with cancer, and I understand that as well. From the care provider community, they don't like to talk about the fight against cancer because a fight kind of denotes that there's eventually a winner or a loser, and therefore, you go to the infusion center and you see those people in infusion chairs getting chemotherapy. It's like, well, they're losers. And I can tell you, being in an infusion center quite a lot of times, there are no losers in there. They're all winners. They're all warriors.
Yes.
They're my heroes, right?
Survivor.
Yeah. So I have a fight against cancer. It's a kind of a personal thing, right? My advice to folks is, one, accept help. People will reach out to you and ask if they can help you, and you might not feel as though you need help, but think about the other person in the equation. A lot of people want to be in control. And when they have a loved one or a friend or whomever that is going through cancer, they feel a complete lack of control. It's not so much that you, the patient, needs help, but your friend needs to help. Does that make sense, Daniel? Right?
Yes.
So when people ask if they can help, say yes. Even if you feel as though you don't need the help, they might need to help. And then, don't be afraid to reach out to support groups and other people there's people going through the same thing you're going through, right? And sometimes it's great to be able to share and listen. And if you want to help others, sometimes others need to be heard and listened to. So like, even if you don't need the help from a support group, but you want to offer help to somebody else, a support group's a great place. Let me hear your story and let me see how I can help you. And then one thing I like to talk to patients a lot about, there's a tendency for some folks to focus on loss and what any serious disease takes away from you. And that's important. It does take some things away from you, and it's okay to grieve those losses. But I also want to share with them how, being diagnosed with a condition or disease, if you look at it in a different light, you might see that it provides other things for you as well. And I'll give you an example here, Daniel. When I was diagnosed, the day before I was diagnosed, March 10th, 2019, I was a husband, I was a father, I was an employee, I was a bandmate, I was a boss, I was a brother, I was an uncle. I had all these different roles in my life. And each one of these roles had accountabilities associated with those roles. And I had goals and objectives for each one of those roles. So October 11th come around, now I have another role. I'm a cancer patient, and then soon after that, I began to have some other roles come up. I'm a cancer patient advocate. I'm a caregiver advocate. We're doing this episode today on February 21st, which is National Caregivers Day. But I'm a caregivers advocate. I am a fundraiser for multiple myeloma, for the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, and other blood cancer causes. I have these other roles that have been added to my life. I'm still all those other roles I was on March 10th, March 11th, 2019. But I've added to those roles, and those roles have been meaningful for me. Writing this book, Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma, it has connected me with patients around the world. I've shipped copies myself personally to New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia. About 2 months ago, a handful of women patients in Iran reached out to me
Yes.
through my Instagram account and wanted to connect. This has been one of the honors of my life, other than being a husband and being a father, to be a multiple myeloma patient advocate for all these people around the world that I didn't know before, right?
Yes.
Yeah, cancer takes some things away, and it's okay to grieve those things that you lose, but don't wallow in them. Because there are some things that it gives back, and I like to think of it's cancer doesn't so much take things away; it just changes, and you need to change along with it. So a couple of things I like to share with patients or anybody, whether you're a patient or you're somebody out there experiencing challenges and obstacles in their life. Some things get taken away. At the same time, if you look at it from the other side, there might be some things that have been added. So, how do you maximize that? And how, once again, do you get to that spot where you feel productive, where you feel satisfied, where you have a sense of inner peace?
So, Mr. Ray, what will be your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
In writing, my shortest of short-term goals is, for all you aspiring writers out there, one thing you need to know is that you are, when you finish your book, you have just started the process. You are responsible for promotion and marketing of your books. If you want anybody to read them, you need to promote those books. So I have 3 books out right now that I'm promoting and marketing. My first book is Immaculate: How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. It's a book. It's a best-selling book, and I'm super proud of it. Of course, I have Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. My third book is an ebook. It's available on Kindle and at the Amazon store. It's called Revenue Orchestration in Today's New Era of B2B Sales and Marketing. I'm super excited about my fourth book, which hits bookstores on May 6th, 2025. It's called the Indy 500, a year-long quest to win the greatest spectacle in racing. So, Daniel, I'm super excited about the new book about the Indy 500. That's exciting for me to get that out there. I'm super excited about, continuing to promote the other books. And then I'm continuing to write music, and have made up my mind to start recording raw demos of that music and sharing them through streaming platforms to let you and others tell me if they should be professionally produced or not. And then I'm also continuing to write long form books. I've just started my first attempt at fiction, and we'll see how that goes. But I've kind of committed to it. I'm about, I don't know, maybe 40,000 words into it. And I'm enjoying the process. It's a challenge. It's my first fiction work. But I thought I'd give it a go. Because after all, Daniel, if not now, when, right?
When, yes. Good luck to your goals, Mr. Ray, and looking forward for more empowering books to come. And I'm inviting you again to come next week or next month to let's talk about your first book.
Yeah.
And to wrap up our discussion for today, what do you hope patients, caregivers, and allies to take away from your book?
Hope. While the timeline exercise, you kind of think about, where you might be on your timeline. Just know that, there's hope, and also don't think too far into the future. Let's think about today, right? So, the
Yes.
motto I told you about was, if not now, when? Another motto that I've put on the back of a shirt to sell at gigs to make more money is punch today in the face. What punch today in the face means to me is that I want to use up today. Today, people, is a gift, and not everybody received the gift. So,
Yes.
what are you? I'm challenging you by asking you, what are you going to do to honor them? What are you going to do to honor the day? And what are you going to do to honor yourself? And for me, it's punch today in the face. I want to get today's attention. I want today to know that I was here, So, if you've ever been punched in the face out there in the audience, that kind of gets your attention right away. You're like, oh, wow, I'm completely focused. No other distractions. I'm completely focused on this, so I want to at night. I feel best about myself at each and every night. If I can kind of, as I'm closing my eyes, I can kind of look over today and say, yeah, I used you up today. And tomorrow I'm coming for you next. So if there's one thing that, I want to, share with folks is, seize the day, punch today in the face. If not now, when, today's a gift. Let's use that gift. Be thankful for that gift. Have gratitude for it. But do it, people. Do it.
And stop complaining, people. Count your blessings. Mr. Ray Hartjen, thank you so much for inspiring us and looking forward for more inspiring books to come. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
You can hit me up wherever fine books are sold and anywhere on social media. It's my name, Ray Hartjen, at all my platforms.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Ray Hartjen, because if you support him, as I said, more inspiring books to come. So, Mr. Ray, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Bodycon people, see you soon.